Evan Clark always loved the stars. Every night he would climb onto the roof of his small suburban house with a cup of lukewarm cocoa and gaze at the endless sky. He didn't just look. He studied, imagined, and sometimes whispered ideas to the stars as if they could hear him. His friends at school thought he was strange, but Evan didn't mind. The universe had secrets, and he wanted to find them. Tonight was special. In his room lay an old dust-covered device, something he had inherited from his grandfather. It was called the Star Map Projector, a strange brass contraption filled with lenses, knobs, and tiny glowing orbs. Evan had spent weeks trying to make it work, following cryptic notes his grandfather had left behind. With a deep breath, he set the projector on the roof, adjusted the dials, and turned the final knob. The device whirred to life, casting a constellation of lights that danced in the night sky. Suddenly, a shimmering portal opened above him, glowing with colors Evan had never seen, colors that seemed alive, shifting like liquid fire. Before he could react, a strong pull yanked him upward. He screamed, flailing, but the portal's force was too strong. In a flash, Evan vanished from Earth. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer on a roof. He stood in a vast, floating palace. The walls shimmered like liquid crystal, and the air smelled faintly of something sweet and fresh like alien flowers. Floating lights hovered in midair, casting soft rainbows across the polished floor. Towers and terraces stretched into the sky outside enormous windows, and beyond them, a nebula glowed in shades of violet and gold. Evan blinked. Okay. This is not Earth, he whispered to himself. Before he could explore, a booming voice echoed through the chamber. Welcome, honored guest. Please proceed to the ceremonial platform. Confused, Evan turned to see beings unlike anything he had ever imagined. They were tall and graceful, with translucent skin that shimmered under the palace lights. Their eyes were large and luminous, and they wore robes that seemed to float as if in water. One of them gestured toward a golden platform floating slightly above the floor. Ceremonial platform? Evan asked. I think there's been a mistake. But before he could finish, a magical hum filled the room and the floor beneath. His feet lifted automatically. He found himself standing on the platform directly opposite a figure draped in radiant robes, a woman with hair like spun silver and eyes like twin stars. She carried herself with grace and power, a princess, no doubt. You are here, the princess said softly, her voice melodic yet commanding, and thus the bond is formed. Evan froze. Bond? Wait, I'm not. A chorus of alien voices rose around him. He is chosen. The union is complete. Celebrate the new pairing. Panic surged through Evan. No, 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 I'm human. I'm not supposed to be part of this. I came here by accident. But the beings paid no attention. In their culture, anyone who stepped onto the ceremonial platform during a wedding was automatically considered the spouse of the one waiting there. It was an ancient law, and it could not be broken. Evan's heart pounded. He looked at the princess. She blinked at him, a mixture of surprise and curiosity in her gaze. Unlike her attendants, she seemed unsure. But the ritual continued. Lights spun around them in dazzling patterns, and the air vibrated with alien music that resonated deep in Evan's chest. The officiant, a tall being with glowing markings across its face, extended a hand. Repeat after me. Declare your unity, under the stars of the cosmos. Evan swallowed hard. Unity under the stars of the cosmos? Yes. Properly, the officiant insisted, eyes flashing. Unity. Under the stars of the cosmos. Evan stammered. He hated how awkward it sounded, and the alien spectators murmured among themselves. The princess tilted her head, watching him with curiosity. He speaks our words. Imperfectly, yet he speaks them, she whispered to herself. The ritual accelerated. Streams of light wrapped around them like ribbons, lifting Evan slightly off the platform. Strange symbols floated in the air, circling his head. He tried to step back, but invisible forces held him in place. "This is impossible," he yelled. "I don't belong here." A soft chuckle came from the princess. "Yet you are here," she said. Perhaps the stars intended it. Evan stared at her, bewildered. She didn't seem angry or annoyed, only calm. And somehow in her calm, he sensed a faint curiosity, as if she wanted to understand him, not just follow tradition. The lights around them intensified, forming a brilliant halo that made the chamber sparkle. Evan's fear mixed with awe. He had never seen anything so beautiful, so vast. For a moment, he forgot his panic, swept away by the splendor of the alien wedding. Finally, the ritual ended. The music faded and the lights dimmed, leaving a gentle glow. The officiant bowed. "It is done. The union is sealed." Evan's knees almost buckled. I'm married," he whispered. The princess gave a slight smile. "By our customs, yes." She offered him a hand, not in command but in gesture. "I am Liara." Evan shook her hand, still trembling. Evan Clark." The attendants bowed and the crowd began to cheer. It was overwhelming, surreal, and completely unbelievable. Evan's life had gone from ordinary Earth nights of stargazing to being the unexpected spouse of an alien princess in less than an hour. As he looked at Liara, he realized something strange. Despite the absurdity, the palace, and the ceremony, he felt a spark of excitement. Somehow he knew that surviving this cosmic mistake would require all of his courage, intelligence, and curiosity. And perhaps just Evan Clark had survived the impossible. He was now married to an alien princess. Yet, despite the dazzling ceremony, he couldn't shake the feeling of being completely out of place. The palace was a labyrinth of glowing corridors, floating staircases, and doors that opened to rooms filled with strange furniture and shimmering plants. Every step felt like a test, every glance from the alien attendants a reminder of how little he truly belonged. Liara, the princess, walked beside him with calm grace. Her silver hair caught the light, creating a halo around her head. Her eyes, bright and intelligent, studied him carefully. She was patient, yet Evan could tell she was as curious about him as he was about her world. "You will need to learn our customs," Liara said gently, her voice musical. "There are rules for the palace, rituals for every occasion, and etiquette for dealing with the council." Evan swallowed hard. "Customs, rituals, etiquette. I'm human. I don't even know which fork to use." Liara chuckled, the sound like soft wind chimes. "You will learn. Humans are adaptable." Their first stop was the royal quarters. The room was enormous, with walls that shimmered like liquid crystal and a ceiling that reflected the nebula outside. Soft lights floated in midair and a gentle hum filled the space, as if the palace itself was alive. Evan dropped onto a floating cushion, exhausted. "I don't know how I'm supposed to survive here," he admitted. "I can barely survive. High school." Liara knelt beside him. "Survival here requires a different kind of thinking. Observation, creativity, sometimes courage. Humans have something rare, something valuable." "What's that?" Evan asked. "The ability to solve problems in ways we cannot imagine," she said. Her gaze lingered on him, serious yet kind. Before Evan could respond, an attendant floated in, bowing deeply. "Your Highness, the council awaits. The nobles wish to meet the human spouse." Evan groaned. "Council? Nobles? Spouse? I think I need a minute, or a year." Liara smiled faintly and extended a hand. "Come. You will find it enlightening." The council chamber was massive. Towers of light spiraled upward, and dozens of aliens stood in perfect rows. Their eyes shimmered with curiosity and judgment. Some whispered among themselves, glancing at Evan as if he were a curious experiment. The head of the council, a tall being with skin like molten gold and markings that glowed softly, stepped forward. "You are the human," it said, voice echoing through the chamber. "We have heard of your sudden appearance." Speak. Who are you and why do you come here? Evan cleared his throat. I'm Evan Clark. I'm human. I didn't mean to. I accidentally came here. I'm not part of your, wedding? But apparently I am? Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some aliens tilted their heads, others exchanged puzzled looks. Liara's hand rested lightly on Evan's arm, steadying him. His arrival is unusual, she said, her voice calm. Yet the law is clear. He is recognized as my spouse. A few nobles muttered under their breath, clearly unhappy. One tall, stern-looking alien stepped forward. This human is a threat to tradition. He cannot be accepted. Evan felt his stomach twist. Threat? I barely understand how to float in this room. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder. Do not worry. He has qualities we should consider. Watch and listen. Then something remarkable happened. A small emergency occurred during the council session. A delicate floating crystal that regulated the room's atmosphere started to wobble dangerously. Evan, without thinking, jumped forward, grabbed it, and stabilized it with a quick sequence of adjustments using simple logic he had learned from Earth physics. The chamber fell silent. The head of the council's eyes widened. Impressive. He thinks in ways unusual to our species. Liara's expression softened. Humans have ingenuity. Even in crisis, they adapt. This is why he may survive here. Evan's face flushed. I just dagened. Evan awoke to soft, glowing light filtering through the crystal walls of his quarters. The palace seemed alive, humming gently, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. For a moment, he marveled at the alien world around him. Floors that shimmered, like liquid glass, walls that displayed moving constellations, and tiny motes of floating light that drifted lazily through the air. A gentle knock came at the door. Liara entered carrying a small device that glimmered like liquid silver. Good morning, she said. Today begins your first lessons in diplomacy and custom. I will teach you how to navigate our society. Evan rubbed his eyes. Diplomacy? I can barely survive high school group projects. Now I'm supposed to survive alien politics? Liara smiled faintly. You are human. That is exactly why you can succeed. You think differently than any of us. You adapt, you improvise. That is the key. Their first lesson took place in the Hall of Traditions, a room filled with holographic displays of the Empire's history. Floating symbols showed battles, alliances, and ceremonies stretching back centuries. Liara explained the delicate balance between the royal family, the council, and the various noble factions. The council is cautious, she said. They respect tradition, but they also value results. You will need to show your worth without disrespecting their ways. Evan nodded, taking it all in. Results. So I need to be useful, right? Yes, Liara said. Your usefulness will earn their respect. Your actions, not your words, will speak for you. Evan practiced small gestures first, bowing correctly, addressing nobles with proper titles, even learning to float slightly off the floor in ways the aliens considered polite. It was awkward at first, and he often collided with floating furniture or misjudged distances. Liara's patience never wavered. She corrected him gently, explaining the cultural reasoning behind each rule. You see, Evan, she said during a pause, customs are not obstacles. They are frameworks. They show others your understanding and respect. If you can master them, you gain trust quickly. Evan frowned. Frameworks. Huh. That makes sense, I guess. But it's a lot to remember. Liara laughed softly. One step at a time. Observation is your greatest tool. Watch, listen, then act. Humans excel at that, even if you do not realize it. That evening, the palace held a diplomatic gathering. Noble representatives from neighboring star systems arrived, each with unique appearances and mannerisms. Some were insectoid, with glistening exoskeletons. Others had multiple arms or eyes. Evan felt his heart pound as he followed Liara through the crowd, trying not to embarrass himself. Remember, Liara whispered, introduce yourself calmly, maintain eye contact, and show respect for their customs. Simple gestures will speak louder than words. Evan took a deep breath and approached a tall, armored alien who extended a limb in greeting. Mimicking the gesture as best he could, Evan nodded. The alien tilted its head, clearly analyzing him, but then returned the gesture with a small, approving sound. A rush of relief washed over him. Next, a group of insectoid nobles began discussing trade agreements in rapid, clicking language. Evan had no idea what they were saying, but he noticed a subtle pattern in their hand movements. Trusting his instincts, he mimicked one of the gestures to indicate cooperation. To his astonishment, the group paused and nodded, impressed by the human's ability to catch nuance. Liara's hand brushed against his arm. See? You are already making allies. They value quick thinking and attention to detail, qualities humans often overlook in themselves. The evening grew more intense when a rival noble approached, his expression sharp. The human is out of place, he said in the common tongue. This marriage disrupts tradition. How can we trust him in our council? Evan felt his stomach tighten. He glanced at Liara, who met his gaze steadily. Do not speak recklessly, she advised silently. Use your mind, not your mouth. Thinking quickly, Evan tapped into a skill he had developed tinkering with machines on Earth, logic and improvisation. He asked a question about the nobles' recent trade venture, noticing a small flaw in their plan. With careful words, he suggested an improvement. The noble paused, considering. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. Perhaps the human has insight, he said. Liara's eyes sparkled with quiet pride. You see? Your humanity is your advantage. You notice what others do not, and you act swiftly. As the gathering ended, Evan realized he had survived and even impressed the alien diplomats. The rush of excitement and accomplishment made him feel alive in a way Earth had never offered. Later, Liara led him to a balcony overlooking the floating city. Light shimmered across the towers, reflecting in the clouds of gas and dust that made up the nebula. Evan leaned on the railing, catching his breath. You did well today, Liara said softly. You are learning faster than I expected. I underestimated human potential. Evan smiled, feeling a mix of pride and relief. Thanks, I guess I'm starting to understand why humans are different, maybe even valuable. Liara nodded. Yes, and more than that, you are teaching us. Your presence challenges assumptions. You make us reconsider what is possible. That is a rare gift, Evan. He looked at her, realizing that beneath the formality of palace life, there was genuine curiosity and connection. Despite the strangeness, he was beginning to feel a sense of belonging. For the first time since the portal had pulled him from Earth, he felt that maybe, just maybe, he could survive, and even thrive, in this alien world. And as the stars sparkled, across the nebula outside, Evan understood something important. In a place so vast and unpredictable, courage, quick thinking, and an open mind could turn mistakes into opportunities. He had been thrown into the impossible, but he was ready to face it. Because being human wasn't a weakness. It was a strength unlike any other in the cosmos. Evan Clark had started to feel more comfortable in the palace, though comfortable was still an unusual word for his life. Floating corridors, glowing plants, and endless rituals were no longer entirely terrifying. They were intriguing. He had learned to move with grace, greet nobles properly, and even enjoy alien cuisine, though some food still hovered just out of reach or emitted tiny sparks. Liara led him to a training chamber early one morning. The room seemed simple at first, a large open space with a smooth floor and walls that displayed shifting constellations. But Evan quickly realized it was a test. The floor changed gravity, the walls projected holographic challenges, and hovering obstacles forced him to think quickly and move faster than he ever had. This is not merely physical training, Liara explained. It is a test of problem-solving, observation, and adaptability. All qualities humans possess in abundance, even if you doubt them. Evan wiped sweat from his brow. I feel like I'm in some alien video game. Liara's laugh was soft, but warm. Then play it wisely. For hours, Evan dodged obstacles, solved puzzles, and adjusted to shifting gravity. His human instincts, improvisation, intuition, and creativity, helped him succeed in ways the alien trainees could not. By the end of the session, Liara nodded with approval. You are learning quickly, she said. Your adaptability is remarkable. Remember, the challenges you face here will not always be so controlled. Real threats may come unannounced. Evan frowned. Threats? What kind of threats? Before Liara could answer, alarms blared throughout the palace. Red and violet lights flashed, accompanied by a low rumble that shook the floating terraces. A voice echoed through the chambers. Intruders detected. Unauthorized ships approaching the palace. Panic surged through the staff, but Liara remained calm. Stay close, she instructed. We must protect the palace and its people. Evan's heart pounded. Protect how? I don't even know how to use their weapons. Liara grabbed his hand, pulling him through a series of twisting corridors toward the observation deck. From there, Evan could see several sleek, dark ships approaching the palace, moving faster than anything he had seen before. Alien defenders readied energy shields and weapons, but the attackers were clearly skilled. Liara turned to him. We need every advantage. Your Earth knowledge. It may help us. Evan's mind raced. He glanced at the ships, the palace defenses, and the surrounding nebula. Then, an idea sparked. He ran to a control panel, pressing buttons and toggling switches with little regard for protocol, relying on his understanding of basic physics and patterns. Evan, what are you doing? Liara asked, startled. Trust me, he said. If my calculations are correct, we can redirect the energy fields to create a gravity trap. Liara's eyebrows rose. A human solution? Exactly. It's risky, but it might work. Moments later, Evan's plan took effect. A shimmering field formed around the palace, bending the trajectory of the intruding ships. One by one, they slowed and spun out of control, unable to breach the palace's defenses. The alien defenders cheered, astonished by the humans' ingenuity. Liara watched him with quiet awe. You saved countless lives, she said softly. Your courage and creativity. Humans truly are remarkable. Evan wiped sweat from his forehead, breathing heavily. I just thought about what I would do on Earth if someone tried to break into my lab. I applied the same logic. Somehow. The aftermath was intense but victorious. The attackers retreated, and the palace staff worked tirelessly to repair Minor Dam. The palace had finally returned to calm after the raid. Repairs were nearly complete. The floating towers glimmered once again, and the nebula outside painted the sky in soft violet and gold. But though the danger had passed, Evan Clark knew peace in the palace was never guaranteed. Liara walked beside him through the grand halls, her robes flowing like liquid silver. She carried herself with royal confidence, yet her eyes often flickered toward him, filled with quiet curiosity. Since the attack, the council had begun to take Evan seriously. But respect from some nobles came with resentment from others. Be watchful, Liara warned as they entered the council chamber. You saved the palace, but some see your success as a challenge to their authority. Evan adjusted his robe, still unused to alien clothing. Great. So now I've gone from ordinary Earth kid to target of palace politics. Liara gave a small smile. That is the nature of leadership. And whether you realize it or not, you have become one. The chamber was full when they arrived. Nobles stood in rows, their shimmering eyes fixed on the pair. The head of the council raised a hand. The human has proven his value in defense, yet questions remain. Can he contribute in matters of diplomacy and governance? Or is his usefulness only in crisis? Murmurs filled the room. One noble stepped forward, tall and severe. We cannot place trust in a species that has no place among the stars. He may have been lucky once, but luck does not guide empires. Evan's chest tightened. He hated the feeling of being judged as unworthy simply because he was human. But before he could speak, Liara lifted her voice. He is not luck. He is ingenuity. His presence has already shifted perspectives in this chamber. Let us test him and see if his mind can serve beyond the battlefield. The council agreed. Evan would be included in the next diplomatic negotiation with representatives from a neighboring star system. It was not just a meeting, it was a test. That evening, Evan sat with Liara in the Gardens of Light. The air shimmered with tiny glowing motes drifting lazily between crystalline plants. He leaned against a railing, staring at the nebula. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted. Diplomacy? Politics? I barely passed debate class back on Earth. Liara's voice was calm. You doubt yourself because you compare your value to others. But strength comes from difference. You see problems in ways no one here does. That is your advantage. Her words settled in his mind. He remembered the crystal emergency, the raider attack, and the way his quick thinking had changed the outcome. Perhaps she was right. The next day, the diplomatic meeting began. The visitors were tall, slender beings with skin that shimmered like shifting sand. Their eyes glowed amber, and their voices carried deep, melodic tones. The topic was resource trade, specifically, the sharing of energy drawn from the nebula. The discussion grew tense quickly. One noble demanded more control while the visitors resisted, insisting on fairness. The council exchanged sharp words, and the meeting seemed close to collapse. Evan sat quietly at first, observing. He noticed small details, the way the visitors tapped their fingers when annoyed, the subtle pauses in their speech when they felt insulted, the way the council members raised their voices to show dominance. On Earth, he had seen similar behavior, during arguments at school or neighborhood disputes. Taking a deep breath, Evan spoke. Maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. Instead of arguing about who controls what, why not build something together? A shared station, right? Here in the nebula, where both sides contribute and both sides benefit, that way no one loses. The chamber fell silent. The visiting leader tilted his head, intrigued. A shared project? Evan nodded. Yes. Humans do this all the time on Earth. When neighbors argue about land or resources, sometimes the solution is to make something both can use together. It's not about who wins, it's about making sure nobody loses. The visitors exchanged glances. The council murmured. Slowly, the tension in the room began to fade. The head of the visitors finally spoke. The human suggestion has merit. Shared investment builds trust. We accept this idea. The council was stunned, but they could not deny the wisdom of the compromise. The meeting ended with cautious optimism, and for the first time, Evan felt the weight of genuine achievement, not just survival, but diplomacy. Afterward, Liara met him on the terrace. The stars reflected in her silver eyes as she regarded him with quiet pride. You did it. You guided two sides away from conflict with words, not weapons. Evan let out a long breath. I just thought about how we handle things back on Earth. People argue all the time, but sometimes the best solution is finding common ground. Liara's voice softened. That is why humans are unique. You find unity in division. You see compromise where others see only conflict. And in doing so, you teach us something new. Evan's heart swelled with a strange mixture of pride and humility. For the first time, he wasn't just surviving alien politics, he was shaping them. That night, the palace held a quiet celebration. Music of soft harmonics filled the air, and the stars outside shone brighter than ever. Evan stood beside Liara, feeling the warmth of her presence. Their bond had grown beyond ceremony. It was becoming real, built on respect, trust, and shared triumphs. Maybe this wasn't such a mistake after all, Evan admitted with a small grin. Liara looked at him, her smile calm yet sincere. The stars rarely make mistakes, Evan Clark. They brought you here for a reason. And as the nebula glowed around them, Evan realized she might be right. Humans were not just survivors. They were problem solvers, bridge builders, and explorers. Even in the farthest corners of the galaxy, humanity had a place. And he, an ordinary boy from Earth, had just proven it. The days after the negotiation passed quickly. The alien visitors had left the palace with promises of cooperation, and the council now regarded Evan with a mixture of surprise and reluctant respect. Where once they saw only an intruder, now they saw a bridge, a human who had turned conflict into alliance. But Evan himself felt strange. Standing on the balcony of the palace one evening, he looked across the glowing nebula, his thoughts tangled. He whispered to himself, "I never planned for any of this. One mistake at a wedding, and now I'm a spouse to a princess, living in a palace light years from home." Liara appeared beside him, her silver robe reflecting the starlight. She studied his face quietly before speaking. "Do you regret it, Evan?" He turned toward her. Her voice carried no accusation, only honest curiosity. He shook his head slowly. "Not regret. Just wonder. Everything feels so much bigger than me. I'm just a guy from Earth. And yet somehow I'm part of all this." Liara's eyes softened. "You underestimate yourself. Greatness is not born from power, but from courage in unexpected places. You showed that courage. That is why the stars placed you here." Her words gave him comfort, though the weight on his shoulders remained. The next morning, the palace held a great gathering. The nobles, soldiers, and citizens filled the halls, waiting for an announcement. The council leader raised his voice. "A shared station will be built in the nebula. It will be the first of its kind, and a symbol of peace. And it was not we who conceived this, but the human among us." A wave of murmurs filled the chamber. Some were impressed, others skeptical. But then Liara stood. "He is no longer only human. He is my bonded partner chosen by fate, and his ideas, his courage have already begun to shape our future. The stars chose him as my spouse, and I will not doubt their wisdom." Her words rang clear and strong. For the first time, the nobles bowed their heads, not to Liara alone, but also toward Evan. After the ceremony, Evan walked beside Liara through the glowing gardens. "So, I'm really your spouse now. Not just by accident, but officially." Liara smiled faintly. "Yes, at first it was chance, but chance can grow into destiny if one chooses to embrace it." Evan thought about Earth, about his old life. Simple mornings, school, family dinners. Compared to this, alien palaces, star fleets, diplomacy. It felt like a different world. Yet deep inside, he felt something new. Belonging. That night, as stars glittered above the palace dome, Evan found himself unable to sleep. He wandered through the halls until he reached the grand observatory. There, a view of the galaxy stretched endlessly. Spirals of light, clouds of cosmic dust, infinite stars. Liara joined him silently. "When I was young," she said softly, "I would stand here and wonder what the stars were trying to say. Now I think I know. They wanted to show me someone different, someone who could teach me how to see beyond old traditions." Evan looked at her, his heart steady. "And maybe they wanted to show me that humans belong out here too, that we're more than just one small planet." She tilted her head slightly, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. "Perhaps together, we are both more than we were alone." Trinti. Words settled between them, gentle yet powerful. In that moment, Evan realized that what began as a mistake had grown into something real. Their partnership was no longer just a bond of ceremony. It was trust, respect, and something deeper neither of them could fully name. The following weeks were filled with work. Plans for the shared nebula station advanced quickly. Evan gave suggestions inspired by Earth, neutral meeting halls, gardens where both species could grow their native plants, and shared schools wing, even revoluti.